So hello and welcome to the video. I am in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and today I am flying up to Riyadh on Saudia Airlines, Saudi Arabia's flag carrier. I'm in business class and I've just learned that they have a business class wing here, so let's go through, let's check in, and if you want to see what happens, stick around.
Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. So through that portal and turn right if you're a Saudia first or business customer or have Saudia's gold status, left for other status holders. Perhaps strangely, they asked to see my boarding pass before letting me into the check-in area. If I'd had a boarding pass, I wouldn't need the check-in area, but a scan of my passport authenticated my rights to enter and the door was zapped open. They obviously don't want looky-loos getting in. And what a lovely space it is too. I think I lucked out here, as my Uber driver must have assumed that because I was a Westerner, I must be travelling in a premium cabin. I had no clue that this facility existed and could well have completely missed it had he not dropped me here. I was immediately intercepted by a floating agent. Not literally floating, that would be noteworthy, but she checked my passport again and guided me towards a free desk. They were all free, but she picked this one and a boarding pass was duly produced. I think I might then have caught one of the rarest phenomenons known, which is a Saudi woman flirting with a Western man. I'll let you decide.
Matthew?
Yes, that's it. Unusual. Yeah, Matthew.
Matthew.
Yep.
Have a nice flight, Matthew.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I obscured her identity to preserve her modesty, just in case. Thank you very much. Some rest and relaxation booths to the right here in case all that flirting gets too much for you. And ahead is a door which screams private security lane, as you'd probably expect to follow an exclusive check-in area such as this. So through the magical slidey door, no security yet, but it still looks promising. Then around the corner and nope, no private security lane. You're deposited back into the main check-in area. But I think that's the only way they can really do it at Jeddah Airport, as domestic passengers follow a different pathway through the airport compared to international passengers, and you wouldn't be able to access both from that Saudia check-in area. Jeddah's Terminal 1 is the fourth biggest in the world according to Wikipedia and is about 10% bigger than Doha's, which will probably give you an idea of the scale. It was a fair hike along to the domestic departures security point. I couldn't immediately see a fast-track lane, but the regular lanes didn't look too busy, so I took that path. A boarding pass check, then security, where they weren't too interested in either liquids or laptops, so I was quickly through. And as a newer terminal, modern design standards mean you move straight from security into a duty-free shop, which is slightly odd for a domestic terminal, as I'm not sure how much duty you'd be saving. Indeed, I'm not sure how much duty there is on Saudi products anyway. And of course there's no alcohol department. It did smell fantastic in there though. I couldn't see any signage to a lounge, but I asked one of the friendly docents who told me to head to gate 5. Past the Dunkin' Donuts, the WH Smith's, the Body Shop, the Starbucks, and soon there'll be a Pret-a-Manger, and down the escalator. Insert comments here about globalisation and Saudi Arabia not being quite what you expected. A warm welcome and into the lounge. Now remember, this is the domestic part of the terminal, so it's a domestic lounge. I really like the Islamic green colour that is worked into the decor. It's a large space too, and this was perhaps 11:30 in the morning when it was really quiet, although the peak of flights from Jeddah are in the mornings and evenings when it's a little cooler and the airplane engines find it easier to operate. The lounge opens out into a larger space around this corner. To the left here is a dining area, and across from it is a buffet. I spotted a quiet area at the very end, so headed over there and made camp. The catering included juices. I developed a mild addiction to lemon mint drinks on this trip. Coffee from here, and against the back wall are waters and sodas. Remember, no alcohol in Saudi. Yet. I think lunch was still being laid out, so the salad offering was a little Spartan, but there were fruits, cheeses and sandwiches behind. I'm sure you'd have been able to identify all of those things yourself. Hot offerings included pasta, chicken sausages and brown stuff. Not a bad spread, all things considered, and I enjoyed a sandwich and a couple of pints of lemon mint juice before it was time to head to the gate. I liked the lounge and I thought it did its job very well. You've already headed down a level to get to the lounge, so when you have to head down again to get to the gate, that can only mean one thing: a bus gate. Boarding was already well in progress. Business class and status holders to the right, everyone else to the left. I'm not sure many of my new Saudi friends had worked that out, and if they had worked it out, I don't know if they cared. There certainly was no enforcement at the barrier. I'll make a video about my time in Saudi, and whilst the West is now welcome there, let's just say Western service standards haven't quite permeated into the culture just yet. And on to a bus. We were flying on a 7-year-old A330-300 that afternoon, and I think it was one of those occasions where the plane had come from an international destination and it was cheaper and or easier to move all of the passengers to the plane rather than to move the plane to the domestic part of the terminal to collect the passengers. But it's always fun to see a large jet from this angle, and I really didn't mind getting some more vitamin D as I waited to board. Left turn at the top of the stairs into the business cabin. A 2-2-2 layout with 5 rows of seats that will be familiar if you saw when Qatar did the dirty on me on a flights to Phuket. I believe this is also American Airlines flagship Transcon business class seat. Not a premium layout and quite a frustrating seat to occupy overnight, but on an 80-minute day flight, it's brilliant. This is actually the best A330 layout Saudia offers, so it could have been worse. My customary 2A that afternoon. There's a nice, large, bright screen, but the seat has a bad case of pokey foot cubby-itis. The biggest challenge though is that the storage areas you do get are over your shoulder. Headphones and a bottle of water were pre-distributed, but that space is quite hard to access from your seat unless you have a double-jointed waist. On the other side is a light and a literature slot, again both really tricky to access from a seated position. Overhead lights and air vents, both of which were readily accessible. I didn't actually use the headphones on this flight, but I think they were noise cancelling and with that Saudi shade of green. A hot towel was with me before I could say salam alaikum, and let's start a tally of service items enjoyed before the doors even close. The damp rag was swiftly followed with a choice of juices. My lemon mint addiction was still in force, and some very yummy mixed nuts. Not champagne, but hey, when in Saudi, eh? Boarding continued for a while, as did the service, as next it was Arabic coffee and a date. I quite like Arabic coffee, which is odd, as I don't much like regular coffee, although that's probably because Arabic coffee doesn't really taste of coffee. Cheers again. We then got a menu, which I'll share in more detail later, and I couldn't resist a refill of that coffee. So I got 7 service items before the doors even closed, which I think must be some sort of record. I've gotten less over the full course of a European business class flight. An on-time pushback and about a 10-minute taxi to the runway. It's a big airfield as well as being a big airport terminal. Bye-bye, Jeddah. I didn't capture any of the safety video, which was a cartoony affair, but I did capture the Islamic pre-departure prayer. I don't think I've ever seen this with an English translation, so I'll show it in full at the end of the video, in case you've ever wondered what's said. And up into a beautiful Jeddah afternoon. Not the cleanest of windows, it has to be said. There's been a lot of coverage of a new entrant to Saudi aviation, as Riyadh Air is scheduled to launch in 2025. This will be a sister airline to Saudia, as both will be owned by the Saudi government, and I believe Saudia will yield some of its slots in congested airports like Heathrow to the newcomer. Riyadh Air will focus on spoke services to Riyadh. The strategy as publicised isn't to immediately compete with the 3 existing Middle Eastern powerhouses by focusing on connecting traffic through Riyadh. Riyadh is the third biggest Arab city, with a population of nearly 8 million people, with only Cairo and Baghdad being bigger. All of Qatar is only 2.7 million people. Yet Riyadh is almost comically underserved by direct flights, so Riyadh Air believes it has huge room to grow and to establish itself, just getting people to and from their home city before perhaps then taking on the connections market. Saudia will then retreat to focus on Jeddah and will be more focused on getting pilgrims to and from Saudi Arabia's holy sites. It's an interesting time for Saudi aviation, with a large, youthful population that's increasingly empowered to travel, boosting demand for flights. Several low-cost Saudi airlines are now on the scene too. The seat controls are convenient to the seat occupant, which is handy, so I did a quick recline before the service started. As I found on that Qatar flight, the seat is cramped at both the head and the feet. There wasn't enough room for me to get both shoulders flat. My feet would have been a little less cramped with my shoes off, but this really isn't a great seat for sleeping. Fine for an 80-minute flight, and heaps better than an economy seat, but it doesn't benchmark well against other business seats. Let's hope Riyadh Air offers something better. The table is really sturdy and floats out of the armrest. Substantial too, no chance of getting out of your seat with it deployed, even if you could then easily get past your neighbour. Here's that menu, 2 options effectively, and the souffle looked intriguing, so that was my choice. And boy, it was a hefty serving. This is an 80-minute domestic flight, remember. Note the tablecloth there too. I love a challenge, but my eyes are bigger than my stomach, as the saying goes, but I think I did quite well. It was really delicious, and I did polish off that dessert after filming this. The view out of the window was pretty spectacular as we crossed the Saudi interior, but before I knew it, we were descending into Riyadh. So how much did I pay for this? I wanted to fly the flag carrier, and business class flight videos are much more interesting to make and to watch. But a one-way flight on Saudia was being sold for 433 quid, which was a little rich for my budget, so I was starting to look at Saudi low-cost carriers. But then I remembered that Saudia is in the Sky Team alongside Virgin, and I had some Virgin points to spend, as I'm very unlikely to spend them on Virgin anytime soon, as I really dislike them. So I had a look, and I was pleasantly surprised to find the flight I was looking at was available for just 15,500 Virgin points plus a whopping £7. That's something like 160 quid all in, which is just over a third of the cash price. An economy seat was 7,000 points and the same cash element. Virgin's loyalty scheme may not be brilliant for Virgin redemptions these days, but there are still opportunities lurking within it. Riyadh Airport also covers an enormous area, so after landing there was a lengthy taxi to get to the terminal, although those of us on the left of the plane were entertained by us taxiing past what I assume was the Saudi Royal Fleet. Quite a nice range of airframes to choose from.
Thank you.
A new terminal facility is under construction, but for now Riyadh's terminals are a little less impressive than Jeddah's. Saudia's domestic flights use the new-ish Terminal 5, which is the best of the lot, and as a domestic flight I was straight out to find an Uber. So Saudia, I really liked them. I got a very good ground experience. The business wing and that lounge were excellent, and it was a very good flight experience too. That meal was really quite memorable, and I doubt I'll ever get 7 pre-flight service items again. And for a domestic flight, that seat is amazing, even if it would be a bit of an ordeal on a longer flight. I've read lots of negativity about Saudia over the years, but I'd also read that Saudia has really upped its game in recent years, and that was my experience. There are worse ways to spend 80 minutes if travelling in the region. So thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Please give the video a like if you did, consider subscribing if you're new, and leave me a comment. Would you fly Saudia? Would you visit Saudi Arabia? And if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there is a Patreon account, the link to which is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Here's that takeoff prayer, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.
To pray on track. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. سبحان الذي سخر لنا هذا